Good evening, my fellow African diaspora. My name is Ambassador Dr. Arikana Chiombari Kwao. I am the African Union Ambassador to the United States of America. Our offices are located on 1640 Wisconsin Avenue, Northwest in Washington, D.C. I am here as your ambassador with two main mandates. The first one is to promote Africa in the Americas, and the second one is to galvanize the African diaspora to participate in the development of Africa. Who are the African diaspora? According to the African Union definition, African diaspora are all people of African descent living outside Africa. The 55 African heads of states understand very clearly that in order for Africa to take its rightful place on the world stage, in order for sustainable development to come to Africa, the African diaspora must be front and center of that conversation. So it is precisely why I'm here to have a conversation with you all, my fellow brothers and sisters, sons and daughters. As you all know, I was appointed by Chairman Zuma, the former chair of the African Union. And currently, our new chair is His Excellency Moussa Faki Mahamat. He took office 2 years ago. Both of them are also very clear about the need for the African diaspora to participate in the development of Africa. Madam Zuma, on my last conversation with her, she jokingly said, "You know, my sister, the African diaspora are a very diverse population. Unfortunately, children of Africa who don't really get along, who don't understand each other, who don't like each other sometimes. But be it as it may, she did have hope that if we continue to engage each other, if we continue to understand each other, maybe, just maybe, we would see enough reason to come together, put aside our differences, and speak with one voice, one continent, one Africa." So that is why I am here. And in order for us to begin to understand each other, in order for us to begin to engage each other in a meaningful conversation, first we must ask ourselves the question, how did we get here? How did Africa end up where Africa is? Allow me to take you to 1884, Berlin Conference. From November of 1884 to February of 1885, our colonizers met to discuss how to make sure that Africa and its children are forever defeated and dominated. Prior to 1884, they were going into Africa in a very haphazard way. They started stealing from each other what they had stolen from the Africans. They were getting ready to have a European war on the African soil. The then Chancellor of Germany, Bismarck, realizing that what was getting ready to happen, called in his sidekick, then King of Belgium, Leopold, and said, "We are getting ready to have a problem. Could we please call all the colonizers to come and meet in Berlin, Germany? Let's discuss, let's organize ourselves to see to it that we can effectively loot from the Africans." So it is they met between November of 1884 and 1885 precisely to make sure Africa and its children are forever defeated and dominated. The way they did it is by chopping Africa up into the tiny little economies that we see today. Countries like Burundi, Togo, Djibouti, Central African Republic, Malawi, Mozambique, the list goes on. Pretty much all the African countries that you see today. That was by design. That was to see to it that Africa was forever defeated. That these small economies are economies that cannot survive on their own, or should they survive, they are easy to destabilize at the push of a button. That was 124 years ago. Fast forward 2019, nothing has changed. The jokes say, when they were strategizing and breaking up Africa and drawing these arbitrary boundaries, a husband and wife who were in bed in Malawi, by the time they woke up, the husband was in Zambia and the wife was in Malawi. That's how arbitrary the divisions were. Picture yourself driving from Zambia you're speaking English. Pretty soon, you're in Angola, you're speaking Portuguese. Pretty soon, you're in the DRC, you're speaking French. Pretty soon, you are in Equatorial Guinea, you're speaking Spanish. Keep moving north, you're now in the southern part of Cameroon, you're speaking English. You go up north, you're speaking French. Soon after that, you are in Nigeria, you're speaking English. It was such an arbitrary process, a process that brought maximum division among people who were once the same. We were powerful kingdoms. The countries of Africa that we know today, prior to 1884, they did not exist as these countries. The countries that we are today are a creation of the colonizers to see to it that we are forever defeated and dominated. To them I say colonizers, mission accomplished, because Berlin Conference remains alive and well. Now, let's assume this world is a boxing game. Even the rules of the game, no. Heavyweights belong to the heavyweights. Middleweights belong to the middleweights. Lightweights belong to the lightweights. You don't take a lightweight boxer or a wannabe boxer and throw them in the same ring with the heavyweight. Well, African countries are not even lightweight boxers. They are wannabe boxers who are being put in the same boxing ring with heavyweights. You see, you got to understand that Burundi has the same sovereignty as China. Central African Republic has the same sovereignty as India. So when it comes to negotiating country to country, little Djibouti will stand next to China. Little Burundi will stand next to India. And when China beats up Djibouti, the world says, Djibouti, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you able to take care of your people? Such a small economy. Its population is growing, but its land mass is not. Djibouti can only do so much. The small economies can only do so much. And even those that have tried to survive, they are so easy to stabilize. Before you know it, there's conflict in those countries. And next thing you know, everything is falling apart. Such is the status of our Africa, ladies and gentlemen. It is so important to me that we understand our Africa from the root cause. So as if Berlin Conference was not enough, when the colonizers were leaving the continent between 1958 and 1961, France did something that was just downright terrible. Made the African leaders sign what they call the Pact for the Continuation of Colonization. France made the Francophone countries sign the Pact for the Continuation of Colonization. Allow me to highlight a few of the items in the Pact for the Continuation of Colonization. And I urge all of you to Google it and read it. And if that does not disgust you, I don't know what will. First, the French said, well, you see, we built a few schools, a few roads, a few hospitals, taught you about the fork and knife and sitting on a table and eating with utensils. We're going to call that the colonial debt. And for that you shall pay to perpetuity. In addition, you will deposit 85% of your bank reserves with the Minister of Finance, the French Minister of Finance. Collectively, the Minister of Finance, the French Minister of Finance will take all your deposits. It was 85% back then. It's now down to about 60. The French minister will invest that money in the French Stock Exchange under the French name. You may or may not know the returns. Today, France is taking out of Africa, Francophone Africa, over $500 billion. Over $500 billion. We, the Africans, the poor countries, we're giving France over $500 billion a year in, year out. And no one is talking about it. The latest figures are saying for every $14 billion that France takes out of Africa, by the time they finish investing it, they're realizing upwards of $300 billion for every $14 billion. So in actuality, France is taking out of Africa trillions of dollars year in, year out. Should any of those countries wish to access some of their own money, that they deposited with France. They have to submit their own financial reports for the country. And if approved, they can only access up to 20% of that money as a loan at commercial interest rates. Figure that one out. That is our reality. It gets better. They were also told that if you need any military equipment, you can only purchase it from France. Your military can only be trained by France. That France will have military presence in your own country and can invade you without notice should they feel French interests are being violated. Language of instruction shall be French. All your minerals discovered, yet to be discovered, France has the first right of refusal. All the contracts, big contracts, private and public, French companies have the first right of refusal. Now, my brothers and sisters, sons and daughters, if you were to go home and run for president, and your first day in office, your chief of staff comes to you and says, oh, by the way, Mr. President, Madam President, before you start, I must read you the do's and don'ts as stipulated by the Pact for the Continuation of Colonization. And your chief of staff reads this to you. What power do you have? This is precisely what our colonizers wanted. To leave us in a position that no matter how hard we try, trying to get a leg up is mission impossible. But in those incidences that we're able to, regardless, because that's who we are as Black people, we're very easy to destabilize. Others might say, but Ambassador, why haven't the African leaders done something about this horrible pact? Well, they have. In the past, it's very well documented. Of the 60-some